Do you guys like snakes? I personally hate snakes, but in this video we're gonna go head to head with my favorite snake of them all, which is Python. Hey everybody, my name is Chris Gaisford. Welcome back to my channel. I have missed you guys. I know it's been a little bit since my last video, but do not worry, I am here to stay, so I am back. I missed you guys so much, I actually brought the camera closer, so hopefully this is a good viewpoint. I figured with today's video where we're going to be working specifically with Python, there wasn't a whole lot to show on my actual desk here, so I would go ahead and bring the camera forward. It just helps speedline some things and make things easier in my life. I don't want to bore you guys with those details right now, because in today's video we are going to be talking about Python and specifically automating web pages with Python. And the reason I wanted to talk about this video is because I used Python to automate a web page recently in my life. So as you guys know, in the year 2021, it's very beginning of, or I guess we're now mid to late January, COVID-19 vaccines have started rolling out. And my grandma and grandpa have recently received their COVID-19 vaccine, their first dose, which is fantastic. I'm super excited about it. But a few weeks ago, or a week or two ago, recently they reached out to me saying, hey, we're trying to get on the list to go get our COVID-19 vaccine, but there's a limited number of slots, how Utah does it, and we're having a real hard time, so we're just trying to get everybody in the family online to see if we can get our spot so we can go ahead and get our COVID-19 vaccine. So let's go ahead, let's hop over to the laptop. I'll kind of walk you through what I've done, and then I'll be explaining what we're going to do in this video. So here we are, we're on Utah County's Health Department's website for their COVID-19 vaccines. Here's the URL up at the top. And how they're doing it is you go to this website, usually at a certain time, you click and make an appointment, and then they have their open doses here. And so right now they have a bunch of dose 2 stuff up, but what we were interested in was the 70 plus dose 1. And you can see it's all filled up, and so that was the problem that they were having, was that they would go to this website, they would click book an appointment, but before they could actually do it, those slots would already be filled up. So my thought process was this would be something great for Python to automate for me. So what I did was I opened up some Python and I wrote this little script. And what this script does, and let's go ahead and not bombard the website because there's actually not a vaccine we're trying to get right now because they've already received it. We'll go ahead and set this to, no, it looks like my numpad is turned off. We'll go ahead and set this to 3. And we'll go ahead and save it. So we'll do a Command S, and then what we'll do is we'll hop over to our terminal. We'll go to this one, and you see it says button not found, release reload page. We're gonna go ahead and clear that out because that was something specific I was looking for. So if we go ahead and run inside of our Pipenv, which we will get to, I promise. We'll go ahead and we'll run the Pipenv run python index.py. And as you will see here, what's going to happen is it's going to actually open up Google Chrome. It's going to load up that web page, and what it's going to do is it's going to look for that specific button, the 70 plus dose 1 button, reload the page if it doesn't see it, and because it never saw it, it closed out of it, and we can see we just have some nice logging here. And that's basically what we're going to be doing in this video, is I'm going to walk you through how to set up the script and how to automate a web page similar to this. But we're not going to be using this specific web page for this video because, one, I don't need a COVID-19 vaccine right now. It's still far too early in the timeline for somebody my age to go ahead and get one, especially where I'm not a first responder. So the title of this video is, can Python get you a COVID-19 vaccine? The answer is yes, you can automate a web page to go ahead and get your name on a list. But I don't want to walk you guys through how to automate on a COVID-19 vaccine website. So I went ahead and I built this website here. It's Puppy Love. Find your best friend. And it's a dog adoption website because, like COVID-19 vaccines and people who adopt puppies, they're all good in my book. That was awful. And this is just a quick little sapper project that I have built. Nothing too fancy about it. You go to this web page, you click learn more, it takes you to the adopt me page where we have these two cuties to go ahead and adopt. These are my dogs here. They're not actually for adoption. This is not a real website. Don't take my dogs. They are mine. But this is little Polygene and this is Luna. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our Python Selenium. Selenium is the add-on for Python to go ahead and actually do this automation through Python. So what we'll do is we'll have it start here on the home page. We're going to go ahead and click on learn more. And this is just a local host web page running on my machine, so it might be a little bit funky compared to a real website, but we'll work through it, I promise. And then that's what it's going to do is it's going to go to the adopt me page, and it's going to click on one of the dogs here. It's going to bring them to a form. What is your name? What is your email? How many dogs do you want? And then you'll go ahead and submit it. And because it is just a web page that's running locally and just I've built just for this video for you guys right here to go ahead and learn a little bit about Python and Selenium, there's no validation on the webpage. In theory, should be a fantastic beginner video to Python, Selenium, a real easy to do, basic 101, everything you need to know to get started to automate web pages. So if you do want to follow along, there will be GitHub links down below for the Git pages that these are on. You could go over and download them and follow through them. It's just the Sapper website that I quickly built that you can download and try to automate yourself. And then there's going to be the Python script as well. What we're going to do here is we're going to be searching the page for specific buttons. We're going to be clicking on certain CSS properties. I have different fields with different IDs, so just different things you could run into in your Python Selenium journey. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So definitely stick around to the end so you don't miss out on anything. This is the first Python video I've released on this channel specifically, so if this is content you like to see, definitely hit that like button and leave a comment down below. I would really appreciate it. It also lets me know that this is a video that you guys do like to see and that I should definitely make more of them. If you're new here, typically I do home automation videos, which will be coming back soon. I just need to get away from my desk and actually make a trip to Home Depot to do my next video on that, but it will be coming out, I want to say within a week. That might be a little optimistic, but I do want to get that one out pretty soon. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our environment all set up. To do this, let's go back into our terminal. We're going to go ahead and get out of this COVID booking directory here. I'm just in a normal directory on my computer. I just named it Python because this is where I typically keep all my Python scripts. So inside of here, we're just going to make a new directory, and we'll call this Get Puppies, because of course. Then what we're going to do inside here, we're actually going to get inside of the Get Puppies directory. And we're going to be using Pipenv for this video. And if you don't already have Pipenv or you're very new at Python, which is fine, welcome to the video, we're going to go ahead and do a pip3 install pipenv. Pip3 just specifies that we're going to be using the pip package manager for Python 3 specifically. If you were just to run pip install pipenv, if I could spell, this is for Python 2. And I'm using Python 3, so that's why I use the pip 3. And now that we have it installed, we actually can run pipenv on our computer, especially if you're using Linux. The instructions may vary between Mac and Windows computers, so use Google. It's a great resource for you out there. But we're going to go ahead and run pipenv, and then we're going to go ahead and say install. And this is kind of like a init command. We're brand new to this directory, so what we're doing is we're just initializing that. We're going to be using a pip virtual environment, and we can see it just creates 2 pip files there. If you would prefer just to use a normal Python virtual environment, go for it. That's great. I think pipenv is just a little bit more user friendly, and for me personally, I do just enjoy using it. So. Okay, so now that we have pipenv initialized for our directory, we can go ahead and say pipenv install, just like before, but this time we're actually going to specify what we want to install. And this video is going to be around Selenium, which is a Python package to automate web pages. So we're going to go ahead and install Selenium. And we can go see it reaching out to the internets of things and pulling it down locally. So we can see, great, we now have it here. And now we could go ahead and we could just say touch index.py, index.py, and that's just going to be the main file we're going to be working in this video. And so what we'll do is we're going to open up a new VS Code window, and I'm actually just going to close out this other one here, and we'll go ahead and we'll say open folder, and we're going to navigate over to my directory, which is code python get puppies, and we'll say OK. And here we can see VS Code is loading up. We have our 3 files, our index, our pip files, and it's currently blank. So what we're going to do is, to actually get started, we're not going to write any code until we actually go to Google and type in Selenium Python documentation. And then here on this web page, if we're going to go over to getting started, and they have this very simple basic script here. We're just going to go ahead and copy that. And we'll go over to our index.py. We're going to close out of that module pop-up extension thing, and we're going to go ahead and paste this here. If you're not used to Python, let me just give you a quick rundown of what this is doing, or if you're not used to Selenium, this might be useful for you as well. So from Selenium, import WebDriver. So this is just Python speak for from Selenium, which is our package we've installed. We're going to go ahead and import WebDriver, which is inside that Selenium package. And then here, we're going to go ahead and import keys. And as you can see down below, they're using keys to do the enter return command. I don't actually think I'm going to be utilizing this import keys in what we're doing today, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove it, keep it lean and mean. And by default, you can actually see this driver, WebDriver equals Firefox. If you want to use Firefox, that's great. I typically have better success when I'm using Selenium inside of Chrome. So I'm going to go ahead and say Chrome here. And then we'll go ahead and keep driver.get here. Okay. And so driver, this is just a variable we're setting to our WebDriver that Selenium is providing. And so everything that we're going to be doing today, we're going to be piggybacking off this driver to actually send commands to our web browser. So driver.get is like saying, hey, go to this website in a web browser. And they're sending it to python.org non-securely, which is bad, but we're not going to be utilizing this URL, so we'll just take it out of here. And then they're using this assert Python into driver title. Basically, they're modifying the title of your web page. If you don't know what that looks like, it's like on my web page here, it says Chris Gaisford. That would be the page title. I have no need to automate the changing of the web title, so we're going to go ahead and change that. Here they're using a new variable and setting it to their driver, and they're saying find element by name Q. So now they're searching the web page for a specific element. We're going to dig into that a little bit later in this video, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that. So the dot clear basically clears the variable of the element that they had selected. I'm not a big fan of that practice, so we're not going to be covering it in depth here. And then here they're sending some keys and hitting enter. We're going to get to this as well later in the video when we're filling out our form. This is something I've never needed to use or have looked into much because I just don't see any use in it personally for my own web automation stuff, so go ahead and get rid of that. And now we have driver.close. So after cleaning up their example file, we're left with 4 lines of code here. This top one, just like that, we have our simple Selenium file. And so how does it actually control Chrome? This is something that is useful to understand because I bet if we just try to run this, it may or may not work. And we're going to need something additional to actually control our Chrome browser. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go back over to our Firefox here, and we'll open a new tab, and we'll just say ChromeDriver. And this top result here, ChromeDriver, WebDriver for Chrome. Basically, this is going to allow us to automate our Google Chrome browser. So we have to download a specific one. I already know that the Chrome version on my computer is 87, so if you just launch Chrome, go to Settings, and then go to About Chrome here, you can see what version you're currently running. Like I said, mine's 87, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and say we need the download for Chrome 87, and I'm on a Linux computer. But you can see they do provide Mac and Windows installs here as well. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and open it with the Archive Manager. That's just going to extract it for us inside of Linux. When we say extract, it's going to ask us where we actually want to save this file. We're going to drop it inside of the directory we're currently working in, so let's get Puppies, and go ahead and extract it there. So now we could go ahead and close out of this web page, and this web page. And so now we're going to actually want to put that path of our Chrome driver inside of this Chrome function here. And this is something I always forget the syntax of. I'm going to go ahead and cheat. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and cat my other file. And I'm just going to look at the top of the file, and we're looking for this executable path. Okay, and so once we define that here, it's looking for a string, and from here we would say users /Chris or whatever my path to my file is. I like to move my files around a lot, and frankly, I think it's bad practice to actually code in a full file path here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually import another Python package. This one we don't need to install. It's just going to be import OS. And so we're just going to import the OS package fully. We're not doing a sub import like we're doing down here from Selenium, only import the WebDriver. We're just importing the whole OS module. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a new variable here that says file path, and we're going to set that to os.get current working directory. Function inside of OS will actually return our full path. So if we actually just comment all this out, and what we could do is we could just say print here, and we could put our file path there, and we'll go ahead and save this file, and then let's go ahead and run it. So we haven't ran anything inside of our Pipenv virtual environment yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, so how to do that is you say pipenv run. So this is telling pipenv that we want to run something inside our virtual environment. And what are we running? We want to run Python because we want to execute our file. And then the name of our file is that index.py. So if we go ahead and just press enter there, we should get our fully working, our current path here. And that is just based off this command, and then we just print it out. Okay, so we see that is working exactly how we want it to work. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this file path here. We're going to go ahead and uncomment all these lines here. Okay, and then what we would want to do is we want to be able to use this file path in this string here. And so in Python 3 they've released f strings. So before your string you could actually just put the f character there. And then inside of here we could actually put some brackets, and we could say file path. And so now we have our file path being inserted into our string. And then we can see it takes us all the way up to get puppies without the trailing slash on the end there. So we'll go ahead and say add that ending slash, and then we'll say ChromeDriver. If we do the driver webdriver.chrome executable path and give it path to our ChromeDriver, it's going to go ahead and automate launching this, which will in turn launch our Chrome browser in something that we can actually automate through Python. So it is kind of a weird out of the way step, but if you don't do it, you can't just automate Chrome out of the box. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and move forward. And now let's go ahead and give it a web page. And as discussed earlier, we're just going to be using this web page I have built here. So we're going to go ahead and copy that, and we're going to go over here to our VS Code, and we're just going to paste that here, and then close out of Chrome. I'm going to go ahead and comment that line out because I don't want it to close out of our Chrome browser right away. I want to make sure it actually opens up the web page we are looking for. And let's go ahead and just save this. Go over here, and let's go ahead and run that same command as before. Remember, pipenv run just means we're going to run a command inside our virtual environment. Python is what we want to run, and then the name of the file that we're actually executing, which is our index.py. So we'll go ahead and press enter there, and what we should see is we should see a Chrome browser pop up with our web page. And as you can see up at the top, it says Chrome is being controlled by an automated test software, which is exactly what we want to see, which means Selenium can now pick apart this web page and perform actions on it for us. And that is great. Everything is looking good. So let's go ahead and actually start by automating something. So the first thing we want to do once we get to our web page is we want to actually start the process to adopt a puppy, right? So we're going to want to obviously go ahead and click learn more to take us to the adopt me page. And so how do we do that? So we're going to actually open up our developer tools, and if you've never seen them before, you can execute them by going to the three dots, more tools, and then developer tools here. They can be a little bit intimidating from time to time, but that's why that's one of the reasons I built out this web page, was to keep things super easy to view and hopefully makes more sense for you guys as well. And we're just going to click on, make sure we have this little cursor selected in the very top corner here, so that way we can actually select an element on the page and get the details from it. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and then we're just going to hover over our page until we get to our button, and then we'll just click, and then over here on the right hand side we can see we have our button there. And you can see it's a button, and you can see it has some CSS attributes, and it has some text. It has a href to our adopt page there, so things are working good. And we can see there's not a whole lot on this web page, which is great for us. And so what we're actually going to do is we want to click this element to take us to that next page. And we can see it has the color red here. And so the first one we're going to show you how to do is actually how to find an element through CSS. It's one of the easier ones to determine as far as where something is on a web page, because we don't have to worry about the path it is on the web page. We don't have to care what items it's nested into, and a button actually makes a great place to start when looking for some sort of CSS action, because buttons are typically styled uniquely. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So this hover background red class here, I bet that one's going to be unique for the rest of the page. I bet nothing else will have that class, so that's why we're going to go ahead and use it in this example. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to go ahead and set a new variable, and this will be, let's just call it red, and we'll just call it red button. How do we actually find this button? So first we're going to want to reference our driver, and remember our driver is what is controlling the web page, so we need to initiate something to our driver. So we'll say driver, and then what we can do is we can find element by CSS like that. And if you want to have an entire list of these find element by, if you go back over to that Selenium documentation, and let's find our, then over here on the left hand side you can see it locating elements, and then here they have the find element by ID, find element by name, find element by XPath, and if you just kind of go down and down and down, we have a find element by CSS selector, which is actually the one we want to use. And down here you can see if there's multiple ones, you could just add an S after element. We know specifically that our web page here only has the one button, so we're not going to be using that variation of it. And we'll actually update my code here to use that find element by CSS selector. Okay, and then inside of here we're going to actually put a string, and we need to tell it how to find that class. So if we go ahead and go back to this web page, we can see it's inside of a button object. So what we'll do here is we'll just type in button. This tells Selenium that we're looking for a CSS property on a button. And then what we're also looking for is hover background red 800. And if you know anything about Tailwind, this is a Tailwind CSS property. It's something I use when I'm building out web pages. That's not hugely important. It could be primary info, danger from Bootstrap, but you're just going to want to call out that button there. And then what we're going to do is, now that we've found the button, now we're going to want to click on it. So we're going to say, hey, that red button we have, go ahead and click on it. And this is another something provided through us through Selenium. It's utilizing our element that we have chosen out here inside this variable. Now we're saying, hey, that red button, send it a click action. And if things go well, let's go ahead and save our file. If things go well and we execute this again, we'll go ahead and close out of our old Chrome page here. And we'll go ahead and say our Pipenv run python index.py. So it's going to load up the web page. And as we can see here, it got mad about something. So if we take a look at the error, so let's see here. Okay, so it was mad about how we try to utilize the button, which was fine. I almost expected it, but I did want to see if it would let us get away with this hover action. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take out this one, and we're going to go ahead and do that red color. I didn't want to use the red color before because other elements in the page had used it for their color, but because we're defining that we are looking for a button, it shouldn't get in the way of things overall. So let's go ahead and save this again, and we'll go ahead and try it out one more time. Okay, it's loading up the web page, and as we can see now we're on the Adopt Me page, which means it did successfully click on that button, and we didn't get any error output. As you can see, it was a very clean run compared to the last time it ran. So we can go ahead and just clear our terminal up here, but now we're on the Adopt Me page, which is great. So now we're going to want to go ahead and look through these cards and figure out which one we actually want to click on. But as you can see, we have two red buttons here, when before we only had one. How does that work? How are we gonna handle that? And so if we just go ahead and go back into our developer tools and we click on each of these buttons, we're trying to find something unique with the button, so that way we can set it apart from the other button. And if we take a look here, we can actually see this button has a data event title labeled to it, which is very useful to us. The person that developed this web page seemed to know what they were doing. But that is actually a really common practice to label what the button is for accessibility reasons. So this is something, this exact syntax here was actually the one I copied from that COVID-19 website that I talked about earlier in the video. So it is of common web practice to see a button labeled like this. So what we're going to want to do on this web page, in theory, is find all the red buttons, and then we're going to want to check their attributes to see if they have this data event title option here. So there is a couple of ways to do this, but the way we're going to be going through in this video is we're going to piggyback off this CSS selector here. And so we kind of have to take our Selenium Python file from top to bottom with the actions we're doing. And obviously you can start wrapping some of these up in functions, which I'm going to be showing you how to do here in 2 seconds. So after we click on that button, what do we want to do? We're on a brand new web page now. So we're going to want to find all of our elements from here. So let's just copy. Let's get a better select going here. We're just going to copy this entire line now. And then what we're going to say is down here we have multiple red buttons. So 4 red buttons in, and we're going to say change this from find element and change it to find elements, because we want it to find all the red buttons. Again, that was something you could see on our Firefox Selenium documentation here. We could find elements by CSS selector. So now what this will do is this is just a Python for statement that says, hey, for how many buttons we find using our find buttons CSS selectors, what should we do? It's now we're going to start looping through a task. And we can say, now we have a red button. What are we going to do with that red buttons? So it's not the cleanest. It's not the cleanest syntax, so we could actually clean it up here and say current button. That is a little bit more friendly to somebody that hasn't seen our code before. Using variables that are easy to understand is huge in coding, so definitely keep that in mind if you plan on sharing this with anybody. So our current button. So let's actually update this. Okay, so we're going to want to loop through all of our buttons here. So what are we going to do with our current button? How are we going to know if it's the button we're looking for? And our first thought is, well, can't we just look at the attributes that are on that button? And in theory, it seems like a very logical thing to do, but it's not as easy as it sounds, because if you say print that current button we're looking at, just to see what that button looks like, let's hop over to our terminal again here, and we'll go ahead and run our index.py. We'll see once it gets to that web page, it didn't actually print out any buttons. That wasn't what I was expecting, just for anybody wondering. So the question is, could it find a button? Because if it found a button, it should have printed this out and then moved on. So let's go back over to our Chrome page here. So make sure to close out of them. If we're not using this driver close, you're going to get a lot of Chrome windows. Just helpful tip there. Alright, so let's go back into our developer tools, and let's select the button and actually inspect the CSS, because we didn't take 2 looks at it earlier. So this one we're actually calling out background red 600, so we're using a different red color than the initial page. So easy enough, we'll go back into here. Instead of saying button red color, we're going to go ahead and say background red 600, I believe. We'll go ahead and save this, and then we'll go ahead and close out of our Chrome page here, and then let's go ahead and run that again. So it launches the page, it's going to click on that button. Great. So now it prints out our 2 buttons here, and well, as you can see, these are Selenium objects that it has here. We don't actually see what attributes that button has. So there is a nice trick we can utilize here, and that is actually from a user on Stack Overflow by the name of Alec XE. Thank you for this little tidbit. But what he has done here is he's created this driver execute script that he has shared with the world, and it is very useful. So it's something that I do like to come find on the internet and bring over to most of my Selenium projects when I'm looking for specific items. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to come to the top of the file, and we're going to paste this here, and so we can look at it. So this is a lot, but theoretically what it's doing is for every attribute on a Selenium item, it's figuring out what it is and turning it into a very friendly, easy to use Python dictionary. And this is something that we might end up using later in our web automation stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and make it super usable to us. So by doing that, I'm just going to make a Python function. And to do this, we do define, and let's just call it adders, because we want the attributes of an element that we're passing into this function. And it's already expecting an element here. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that, and we'll just say anything we pass in is the element that this is looking for. And since Python is tab-based spacing, we'll go ahead and put a tab here. And then what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to return, just so you and me can actually see it's working, we're going to go ahead and return that, well, maybe, let's name this get attrs, and then we'll actually take attrs and set that as a variable to the Python driver execute script that we've taken from Alec XE, and then we're going to go ahead and just return that attrs, so that way we have access to it. So down here inside of our for loop, when we say print button, we could actually say we want to get the attributes, so we'll say attrs again here, just keep them matchy, and we're going to run it through that get attrs function. And what are we passing into that function? That current button. Okay, and then we should be able to go print our adders. And so what this should do is inside of, when it gets to that web page, it should find all of the buttons with our background red 600 class on them. It's going to go ahead and take that Selenium element and it's going to go ahead and throw it through this script, and then in theory it's going to give us some information, a Python dictionary, and we're just printing that out here. And so if we go back and run this, instead of these selenium.webdriver objects that you and me as humans can't understand, we should get something a lot more user-friendly. And here we go. We can see we have a class object with a bunch of stuff in it, and we also have these data event title blocks here. And these data event titles are different. As you can see, our class names are the same, so we could actually piggyback off that inside of Python to get what we want. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that text there. We're going to hop over to our Python, and we're going to get rid of this print statement because once we have this web page automated, we probably no longer care about all the attributes of those elements. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, if adders, and we're saying inside that adders dictionary, that data event title, if the data event title for that button is equal to something, I think in Python it's just the double equals there. I've been coding with JavaScript recently, so I get them a little bit confused, but I'm pretty sure it's double equals in Python. So it says if adders data event title double equals, what are we looking for specifically? So this is up to you, but for me, I want a husky, and it just makes my syntax a little bit cleaner because this button is a lot more complicated as far as the title goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop back over to that Python output, and we're just going to copy husky. And this is cute girl Luna. Remember, of course we want Luna. She's just a sweetheart. So we're going to say, hey, if the data event title for our button is husky, what are we going to do? So basically, it's not going to run this specific action for our Cocker Spaniel Aussie mix. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take our current button, because we're not changing the button as it's doing the loop. It's found the button that has our attribute we're looking for. So what are we doing? We're going to take that button and we're going to click on it. Okay, and then just like that, if we save it, we should progress to our next screen, which looks a lot like this. So let's go ahead and close out of that and just verify everything is working. So we'll go ahead and rerun our pipenv run python index.py, and in a blink of an eye we can see we're back to this page. Alright, so hopefully I still look the same. My camera decided to stop recording on me, so we're back. It's been a few hours because I decided to take a break, but we're back. So I think we left off right here. So we just barely did that. Oh. I didn't start the screen recording. Alright, so this is where we left off at. But now we need to go ahead and fill in these inputs with some text. We have a place for the name, an email, and how many dogs you want. This is just a number filled here. And then obviously we have our submit button. So let's go ahead and, like we have on every other page thus far, let's go ahead and open up our developer tools. We're going to go ahead and extend this out. Okay, just like that. Now let's go ahead and inspect these. So looks like each of these have a unique ID, which is pretty common with input fields. So we have a ID of name, an ID of email, and we have an ID of number. So, and then of course our button down here has the background red 600. So let's go ahead and close out of this. We're going to hop over here. And so after we find our page, we're just going to go ahead and throw it down here. As long as we keep the same tab, it will just continue to do it as long as that was Husky. So we'll come down here, and now we're going to want to find some inputs. So we're going to just go ahead and create a few variables here. We're going to do a name input, and then let's go ahead and copy. Oh, that is not how it's done. Let's go ahead and, alright, I don't know how to do that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just copy this line here a few times. Okay, so we have a name input, we're going to have an email, and we're also going to have a number input. So we have name, email, and number there. Let's hop back over to our Selenium elements here, locating elements on step 4 of the documentation. And now we're going to go ahead and grab elements by ID. And we'll just come over here and we're going to go driver dot find element by ID. And this one had an ID of name. And let's actually just go ahead and copy this on each one of these lines as well. So we have name, email, and number. So instead of finding the element like we did up here on line 16 and then calling it out again and then doing a click by itself on line 18, what we're going to do down here is we're just going to put this at the very end, and it's going to be a send keys. And what this is going to do is actually going to send stuff to an input for us. So we could say name is Chris, and now we're doing an email here, so we could say email at emailserver.com, and now it's asking for a number, so we're going to go ahead and do a send keys for 2. And then let's go ahead and let's not do our click just yet. Let's go ahead and save this and make sure everything is working as we expected. So we'll come back to our terminal and we'll rerun our pip env. And oh, it is a little bit upset, and it says it has no attribute for send keys. And I think that is because instead of send keys, it might be send underscore keys. So let's go ahead and just get that fixed here. And we'll rerun it at the terminal. And there we go. So we have Chris, we have email at emailserver.com, and we want 2 dogs. And then just for that last button click, we could actually just recall out our red button here, and we'll just go ahead and copy that there, and we'll put this here. And since we did call out our .send keys on the backs of each of these, we actually don't need to assign them variables here, so we can just take those out here. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it. Let's go ahead and close out of the Chrome browsers that we have left open. Okay, and let's go ahead and see if it gets us from start to finish now. Okay, oh, it looks like it is mad because the red button that it had saved before and its stuff was no longer found on this page because it was on the previous page it was on. So let's go ahead and close out of this, and what we're going to do is we'll just copy this driver section here, and we'll copy that and we'll put that down here. And since we've called out this red colored button a few times, we could obviously just come up here and we could just do a function called red button, and we don't need to define an element. And what we'll do is we'll just say, we can actually call it red button click, so we'll just attach the click statement to this function. And let's go ahead and just grab this red button here, and we'll just move that up here into the function and fix a few of these spacings there. And now we can actually remove that, and then all we have to do in its place is call that red button click function. And we're going to go ahead and copy this line down here. Okay, so just like that. So now when we get to these red button clicks, it's going to run this function where we've defined this red button. And we'll go ahead and close the browser now as well. And as long as things go well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Oh, and it is still mad because it says, oh, we're calling it is looking for the red color here. That was a oops on my part, because if you remember, we were looking for a button of background red 600. So to not undo everything that we've done here, we can say we could say red here, and then what we'll do is we'll change this to an F string, which we talked about down here in our ChromeDriver path. And then instead of this red color, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut that, and we're going to go ahead and put that red right there. So it's pulling this red from inside this function, and now when we call it, all we have to do is define what red color we're looking for. And just like that. And actually, this one isn't the red color, this one is the background red 600. Alright, now everything should work. And alright, I mean, it completed out, so it means it didn't error out here. We didn't quite get to see it finish, so I'll go ahead and I will comment this out for the time being, and we can run it one more time just so we can see we got to the final screen. There we go. Thanks for adopting. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave this video. Again, I don't typically do Python on this channel, but I wouldn't be against doing more of them. So if you liked this type of video, go ahead and hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. That would be just fantastic. If you're interested in home automation, or you're normally on this channel for home automation, this was hopefully a useful video to you as well. Python is a huge thing to learn, especially for home automation. I mean, Home Assistant itself is actually coded using Python as its backend. So, I mean, Python is just a good language to know for home automation, or if you're interested in Linux or server administration, which I do for a career, you're going to use Python all the time. So I definitely am interested in Python, and I would like to do a few more of these videos if you guys seem to like it. So maybe stick around and see if I do release a few more of those videos. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching, giving me your time. I really do appreciate it.